Hello, thanks for joining us this week on Project Justice. I am Utaba Morin. The annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, came to an end last week. What it perhaps has thrown up more vividly is the role of government using its institutions to galvanize economic prosperity and development for its people. It is a constitutional responsibility or requirement. Chapter 2 of the document speaks of fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy, where it clearly provides for the socio-economic rights of citizens. Now, here is where governments at different levels have, over the years, failed. We shall be bringing you talking points from the session of the governors at the conference. But first, some top news item in the human rights and justice sector in Nigeria.
Nigeria's human rights community has demanded a thorough and independent investigation of last Saturday's demolition of the Ekuku market in Owerri, Imo State. A 10-year-old boy, Somtochukwu Ibeanusi, was reported killed by gunshots fired allegedly by a security agent during the incident.
I lost all my goods, even my only son. I lost it. What next?
The demolition was said to be carried out in defiance of a pending High Court order. The Imo State government claims the eviction was done in good faith and was peaceful, although eyewitness accounts dispute the assertion.
In fact, let me repeat myself, that this is the best thing that has happened to Owerri Capital City. It's the demolition of these structures, and at the end, this brings to complete end the issue of criminalities, drugs, armed robbery, kidnapping in Owerri Capital City.
The police has also denied knowledge of any casualty, insisting its role was mainly to provide security cover as the bulldozers moved in.
This operation has been very, very smooth. We have used minimum force through the use of tear gas. If you look at all of us, we all have red eyes. It's about tear gas. The miscreants, if they used firearms on themselves, not to my knowledge, I've been here. I am not aware of any death. If there was one, we should have evacuated from the scene. I am not aware of any death in this operation.
Notorious kidnap kingpin Chukwudineme Owomadike, popularly known as Evans, has pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of kidnapping. This follows his arraignment before Justice Hakeem Oshodi of Lagos High Court, Ikeja. His lawyer is already alleging that his client was pressured to admit guilt. The trial judge has ordered Evans be remanded at the Kirikiri prison till 19th of October 2017. An Abuja High Court has asked the Advanced People's Democratic Alliance APDA to resolve its legal representation before the next hearing of the leadership dispute suit. This followed the appearance of another lawyer, Ziggy Usman, after Ayo Ogundale had already announced appearance at the previous hearing. The party had initiated the action seeking for a restraining order on its former interim national chairman, Mohammed Shitu, and interim national secretary, Emeka Okengu, and also demanding they hand over original documents of registration of the party.
We have told the court that that motion is not a competent motion. The court has also said or stated emphatically that that is not the process to, if it is legal or if it is normal, that's not the normal process to change, cancel, or to deprive a cancel. First of all, they were not the ones who briefed me. They were not the one who asked me to file this matter. So I don't take instructions from them. And so all they are trying to do, like I told you before, is just to frustrate this matter, to delay it, and to introduce all kinds of dichotomies into it. But luckily, the court has adjourned the matter again and said that on the next adjourned date, all the pending applications, both the ones that were filed and the ones that are yet to be filed, must be taken on that date.
Welcome back. Socioeconomic rights, they say, is justiciable. But in an environment where accountability is low, are the leaders ready to take up that responsibility? Now, here are the high points of the NBA Governors Forum.
These distinguished and illustrious sons and daughters of our nation contributed greatly not only to the evolution of the legal profession in Nigeria, but also to the greatness of our state over the past 50 years. Indeed, it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to identify the icons of the profession in contemporary time without a story to tell about the limitless opportunities which Lagos offers for all to realize our dreams and reach the peak of their potentials, irrespective of race, ethnic, religious, or socio-economic background. This is the legacy that has been jealously cherished by succeeding generations and which we will continue to build on because it is the source of our strength, leadership, and prosperity. It is against this background and in the spirit of Lagos at 50 celebration that we feel excited to partner with the Nigerian Bar Association in hosting this year's annual conference. The NBA has chosen for this 57th conference a theme that speaks pointedly to one of the issues that have kept Africa far behind on the scale of ease of doing business. Weak institutions constitute a major disincentive for investment, which is extremely important for the efficient and effective harnessing of the huge resources that nature has blessed us with. Our institutions are weak because in most cases, the establishment is influenced by personal and short-term considerations. In some other cases, they are deliberately weakened in order to make them subject to the whims and caprices of the leadership. Building and sustaining strong institutions requires our collective commitment to the rule of law. It entails building the capacity of such institutions to be able to discharge their responsibility effectively and transparently, while also being accountable to the people. It must create an atmosphere of confidence, mutual understanding, and protection against arbitrariness. We must take a cue from developed economies where the integrity of their institutions is not compromised for whatever reason. In those climes, it is the institution that puts officials of the state in check and not vice versa, as we have experienced and are still experiencing in most parts of the continent. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is the ideal and best global practice which we in Lagos State are striving very strongly to attain towards building an economy that is globally competitive. It has been one of our key commitments in the past 2 years, as exemplified by the far-reaching reforms we are implementing by way of security and judicial sector reforms. Happily, these efforts are yielding the expected outcomes. I have no doubt in my mind that this conference will produce new and useful ideas which will help in deepening the effects of ongoing efforts to build and strengthen our institutions in line with the best global practice. Before I end this brief remark, let me use this opportunity to call on the Nigerian Bar Association as a body and members to raise your voices in support of the demand for devolution of power to states and fiscal federalism, especially the review of the current revenue sharing formula. These, in my view, are fundamental and critical to creating an enabling environment that will accelerate development in all parts of the country. The ongoing process for the review of the 1999 Constitution presents a golden opportunity for us to redress all the aberrations created by the interjection of the military that have stunted growth and inhibited the capacity of states to harness the huge potentials of this great country.
Kano is a center of commerce historically and actually. But in order to sustain the centrality in commerce for northern states and even some West African states, and even center of commerce for Lagos, because as we learned, the goods produced in Lagos are more purchased in Kano than in Lagos. So in order to maintain that lead and even become center of excellence and commerce, we need a very strong security arrangement so that the city is made safe. We have a challenge in that, like earlier mentioned by the representative of the governor of Rivers State, the security agencies are being controlled by the federal government, especially those involved in civil administration, that is the police. So in Kano State, what we are doing is to have a very close working relationship with the security agencies, and also we mobilize members of the public to be security conscious and develop a synergy between the security agencies and members of the public.
At least we have a seaport, because whatever we think about it, we talk about parking of big vessels, it can only be in Ondo State and nowhere else in Nigeria. That we know is clear. Now, before we came in, we had issues about developing liquefied natural gas. We know efforts have been made in branch. There are a number of people who are here today who are from NNPC, all of them are there, who are in oil. But all of us know, with what we have in Ondo State, the clear area to have liquefied natural gas development is Ondo State and it's local. It can't be any other place. That is where we survive. So we have looked at so many things, and in a short time we have stayed there. We are convinced that we must put in place a bill, and luckily it been passed, on what we call ONDIPA, that is Ondo State Investment Development Agency. Development Promotion Agency. The ONDIPA itself is designed to be a one-stop shop for investment. So we have tried as much as possible to ensure that we attract investors, and they are coming. People know today we can boast of vast arable land. We can boast of so many cash crops. Because it's not for us to just plant only cassava, yam, but we are talking about crops that will earn us foreign exchange. You think about cocoa, you think about palm produce, you are thinking about timber. It cannot be any other place. So we know that there will be some measure of neglect, not because of lack of efforts, but we had several hectares of our own afforestation. Our timber has been depleted over years. But immediately we came in, we were able to attract about four companies who today are involved in replanting. We believe that we must reforest, and we are keyed into Red Cross program so that we think about our environment as we move along. So in Ondo State today, the focus is on agri, the focus is on investment, and our IGR no doubt is low. So we felt that we must involve so many other institutions so that we can beef up our idea. Without that, we are moving nowhere. Now, a number of us who came into this conference from Ondo State for the first time flew from Akure to Lagos. We had a few of our investors who come in from Lagos, they travel about 5-6 hours, they return maybe another 7 hours, they never come back. How do you traverse such hazardous way and you expect them to come back? So we have to, at cost to government, at least invite people who are interested, who can do business with us, and we've got the airline. We have to subsidize to make sure that we encourage investors to come in to those states. So today, all of us who are here, we are free to come at a subsidized rate to those states for investment purposes. So what we are doing is really to create an enabling environment for investors. Ondo State cannot remain a civil servant state and think it will grow. The only way.
In the highly competitive environment of a globalized world, most Nigerian business enterprises that were household names several decades ago are either failing or becoming relics. The few successful ones are the companies that boldly re-engineered their governance and workforce structures and concentrated on building institutional growth. While it was reported in 2015 that sub-Saharan Africa accounted for the largest number of regulatory reforms aimed at making it easier to do business in the previous year, with 75 of the 230 documented worldwide, challenges still persist in the region, with countries in the region hardly improving in their ranking on the cost of doing business. Nigeria, for example, reportedly inched just one notch higher from 170 in 2016 to 169 in 2017, despite efforts to ease incorporation and regulation of businesses through improved online government portals and financial systems. In my view, however, there is a need for strong regulatory institutions for better supervision and monitoring so as to detect corporate inefficiencies and minimize vulnerability to financial crisis. It is important to have a well-regulated corporate governance regime so as to build the confidence of investors, prevent financial crisis, and control corporate failures. Sound corporate governance practices, such as building a strong and qualified board of directors, reviewing board mandates, and stating clearly defined rules and responsibilities for board members, CEOs or executive officers and management is a sure way to foster growth of the enterprise. In like manner, good ethical dealings by directors as well as effective risk management sustain small businesses and aid in their growth. Permit me to observe that lawyers are pivotal to the process of institutionalizing reforms, be it in the formation or formulation of legal standards or their implementation. Legal advisors of corporate Nigeria and business generally have a significant role in guiding entrepreneurial odysseys along the compliance path. For therein lies the difference between sustainable growth and collapse. The adoption of best practices in corporate governance will ensure the sustenance of business. Well-governed companies are lower financial and non-financial risk and generate high returns to shareholders. They also have better access to external finance and reduce systemic risk arising from corporate crises and financial scandals. It is also important to add that good corporate governance promotes reliable financial reporting, timely disclosures, better boards, and sound management, all of which facilitate development of stronger capital markets.
I began my term as president of the Nigeria Bar Association on the 29th August 2016. Shortly after, we found ourselves in a whirlpool of a number of controversies. The first was triggered by my somewhat innocuous comment in my inaugural address in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. In that speech, as president of the bar, I drew attention to the need to review the institutional framework for the operation of Nigeria's foremost anti-corruption agency, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, otherwise known as the EFCC. It's a strategy for strengthening Nigeria's fight against corruption. My comments asking for a narrow and clearer definition of EFCC's mandate and securing its institutional autonomy from political interference attracted very virulent attack against the legal profession from the EFCC leadership. The second controversy erupted later in October that year, precisely on the 7th of October, 2016. It followed a midnight raid and arrest of judges of Nigeria's superior courts, including Justice of the Supreme Court, by the State Security Service. This was unprecedented. It threw the legal community into a state of confusion and disarray. Opinions became sharply divided. For some, it was a welcome development, reflecting the general popular perception of the deep rot in the Nigerian judicial system. For others, it was a cynical assault on the nation's judiciary, aimed at intimidating the courts by an agency essentially controlled by the executive branch with no constitutional mandate to do what it embarked upon. These controversies, I dare say, were at the heart of Nigeria's development crisis, its inability to create and nurture strong institutions. More importantly, our failure to nurture the culture of open public debates about the forms, character, and functions of public institutions. We promote strong individuals rather than strong institutions. They are symptomatic of the weakness that characterizes Nigeria's public institutions. Neither the EFCC nor the nation's judiciary enjoy the confidence of the Nigerian public. These controversies were also playing out against the backdrop of recession in the economy, declining standards of living, and the high level of corruption that was unfolding at the time, and the seeming inability of law enforcement agencies and the judicial system to confront and deal with it. It became clear to us that the declining economic fortunes, seeming failure of the legal system, was further undermining confidence among the various groups in the country, leading them to question the viability of the Nigerian project. The insurgency in the Northeast, the restlessness in the Niger Delta, and the rising tension among various agitators was beginning to shape the national narrative along very divisive lines. People began to question more and more the justification for the continued existence of the country as a single entity. For the leadership of the legal profession, the issues became clear. The challenge of development in Nigeria is the challenge of institution building. It was clear that the inability of our country to guarantee social protection and political stability, as well as engender economic prosperity, is being hamstrung by the absence of strong institutions. The EFCC would succeed not on the basis of a strong rebuttal or magu, but on the basis of clearly defined and well-structured institution run on a sustainable basis. An institution that will continue to operate on an enduring basis, delivering on its mandate in an accountable manner, and not so much on the strength of one individual, but on the basis of defined rules and processes. The same goes for the Nigerian judiciary, and indeed other sectors of society and the economy.
Well, that's Project Justice for this week. Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll see you next week. I am Utubal Moran.